Most people measure their financial position by looking sideways. They watch the cars in driveways, the kitchens on social media, the trips that fill everyone's feed. And from that comparison, they draw a quiet conclusion. Everyone else has it figured out. That conclusion is almost always wrong. Federal Reserve data from 2025 shows the median household approaching retirement holds a net worth that is mostly trapped in home equity, not in investable assets. Nearly 4 in 10 American adults cannot absorb an unexpected expense of a few $100s without borrowing. The person at the next desk who just booked a European vacation may be carrying 22% interest on the card that paid for it. The visible signals of financial health and the actual structural reality beneath them are not the same thing. Most people are not behind because they lack information. They are behind because the habits that build stability are invisible from the outside. Today, this episode is about something specific: the quiet structural signs that tell you where you actually stand. Not relative to the highlight reel, relative. Before any sign of progress can be understood, the actual baseline has to be clear. In 2025, the financial position of a typical American household is considerably more fragile than public perception suggests. Credit card balances across American households have crossed $1 trillion, carrying average interest rates above 20% annually. Retirement savings among households in their 50s remain a fraction of what their own projected needs will require. Most of this fragility is hidden. It is dressed in new phones, leased vehicles, and renovated spaces purchased on revolving credit. The financial system rewards spending and makes the infrastructure of stability, the buffer, the consistent investment, the debt-free position, feel boring by comparison. When you measure yourself against the visible surface of other people's lives, you are measuring against a performance. The data underneath that performance tells a different story, and it is the data that actually governs outcomes. Understanding this baseline is the prerequisite for understanding what the real signs of. The first structural sign is one of the most underestimated: a liquid emergency reserve covering 3 or more months of living expenses. According to savings research published in 2025, fewer than half of American adults could cover a single $1,000 emergency without borrowing or using credit. That figure is not 3 months of expenses. It is $1,000. A single unexpected cost that a majority of households cannot absorb cleanly. A 3 to 6 month cash reserve is not a conservative goal. By the actual distribution of American household finances, it is an advanced position. The function of an emergency fund goes beyond the obvious. It is not just financial cushion. It is a circuit breaker. It converts what would otherwise be a debt event into an administrative inconvenience. The household without a buffer is operating in a permanent state of latent fragility. Every car repair, every medical bill, every job disruption is a potential cascade. The household with a buffer has structurally removed that cascade risk. That is a different architecture entirely, not a different amount. When an expense appears, one household reaches for a credit card at 22%. The other reaches for the account that already exists. Over time, the compounding difference between those two responses accumulates into outcomes that look completely unrelated. The second structural sign is consistent investing, regardless of the amount. Roughly half of American families hold any equity investment at all, including through employer retirement plans. The other half holds none. If you are contributing regularly to a retirement account or a brokerage account, even in modest amounts, you are inside a mechanism that nearly half of American households have never entered. The mechanism is not the account. The mechanism is time combined with consistency, and the way compounding amplifies that combination. 2 investors, same total dollars deposited over a lifetime. The one who started a decade earlier and contributed less will, in most realistic scenarios, arrive at a larger number. The reason is not math complexity. The reason is that the early investor's money has more time to compound on itself before the comparison point is reached. This is why the size of the contribution matters far less than most people believe. The variable that the mechanism rewards most is duration. Entering the mechanism early and staying consistent protects the most valuable input available, time already in motion. Every month of consistent investing is a month of compounding that cannot be recovered by investing more later. The household contributing $300 a month at 35 will, in most historical projections, outperform the household that waits until 45 to contribute $600. The dollars are similar. The outcomes are not. The difference is not strategy. The third structural sign is the complete absence of high-interest consumer debt. American households currently carry over $1 trillion in revolving card balances, with average rates exceeding 20% annually. A household carrying $8,000 at 22% is spending roughly $1,400 a year, generating no asset, no return, and no progress toward any financial goal. That $1,400 exists as a tax on past spending decisions. It recurs every year that the balance persists. High-interest debt does not just consume cash. It consumes the compounding capacity of that cash. Every dollar redirected to interest payments is a dollar that does not enter the investment mechanism, does not compound over time, and does not build toward the next structural layer of stability. The absence of this debt means every dollar earned is working forward, not partially forward after interest, fully forward. The gap between a household with this drain and a household without it widens not just because of the interest paid, but because of the compounding that never happened on the capital that was diverted. That gap is invisible from the outside. It does not show up in what someone drives or where they vacation. But over a 10-year span, the structural difference between carrying high-interest debt and not carrying it reshapes. The fourth structural sign is intentional margin. Consistently spending less than is earned, not because of income limits, but because of a deliberate decision. There is a distinction that matters here. Living modestly because there is no alternative is a constraint. Living modestly because future capital is worth more than present status is a strategy. Research across long-term studies of American wealth accumulation points consistently to one behavioral variable as the strongest predictor of financial outcome over time. It is not income level. It is not investment sophistication. It is the sustained gap between what comes in and what goes out. Households that build real wealth over decades are not typically the highest earners. They are the households with the most persistent margin. That margin is what funds the buffer. It is what funds the consistent investment. It is what makes debt avoidance structurally possible rather than just theoretically preferred. Margin is not the absence of spending. It is the presence of a decision about how much spending serves the actual goal. The household that drives a practical car, lives in a space calibrated to comfort rather than status, and consistently directs the difference toward the future is not choosing deprivation. It is choosing architecture. The lifestyle is the foundation, and the foundation is. The fifth structural sign is psychological rather than numerical, and it may be the most predictive of all. Behavioral economists describe a concept called future self-continuity, the degree to which a person today identifies with the person they will become. Research consistently shows that this single variable correlates with savings behavior, debt levels, investment consistency, and long-term financial decision-making across virtually every measured dimension. The person who asks what a decision costs in 10 years before committing to it is operating on a different timescale than the majority of people making financial decisions around them. This is not a fixed personality trait. It is a cognitive habit. It develops through practice and is reinforced by the accumulation of decisions made with it active. What makes this sign structural is that it governs all the others. The buffer exists because someone protected future stability. The investment habit exists because someone valued a future return over a present expense. The absence of high-interest debt exists because someone refused to pay future dollars for present consumption at a cost no rational long-term investor would accept. The margin exists because someone decided the gap was worth maintaining when the culture all around them was pressing in the opposite direction. The time horizon is the architecture beneath the architecture. It is where all the other There is a reason none of this feels like progress from inside it. An emergency fund looks like a flat number in an account that never moves. Consistent investment contributions look small against the distance remaining to any long-term goal. Living with margin feels, from the inside, like restraint. From the outside, it looks like nothing at all. Meanwhile, the person spending at the edge of their income is generating visible signals: the new car, the renovated space, the documented travel. The social environment around money heavily rewards the visible. It has almost no mechanism for recognizing the structural. This creates a persistent perceptual distortion. People doing the right things feel behind because the right things are invisible, and people doing the wrong things feel ahead because the wrong things produce signals. The data does not confirm this. In 2025, the majority of American households with impressive visible signals are carrying fragile financial structures beneath them. The households without impressive visible signals, but with a functioning buffer, consistent investment, no high-cost debt, deliberate margin, and long-horizon decision-making, are in a fundamentally stronger structural position. That structural position compounds forward. It does not need to perform anything. It simply Financial progress almost never feels like what it is while it is happening. The habits that build real stability are slow, quiet, and invisible from the outside. They generate no visible signal that registers in the comparison economy most people navigate every day. What they generate is structural resilience, the kind that absorbs disruption without cascading, that compounds over time without requiring attention, that produces outcomes that eventually become undeniable. The buffer, the consistent investment, the absence of high-cost debt, the deliberate margin, the long time horizon. These are not 5 separate behaviors. They are 5 visible expressions of a single underlying architecture. A household organized around long-term stability rather than short-term performance. If that architecture describes how you are operating, you are not behind. You are building in the direction the data consistently confirms produces outcomes. The balance will reflect it eventually. It always follows the habits, not the other way around. Progress that cannot be seen is still progress. The structure is real regardless of what the surface